We all have our trials, but we're never alone. That's what makes our trials triumphant. Trials and Triumphs with your host, Pastor Ladina Boo.
Good morning. This is Pastor Ladina Boo from Stockton, Missouri, and my guest today is Meg Martinez. She had to get up this morning as she's in California, so she's a couple hours earlier than us. I'm sorry if I got you up too soon. I probably irritated your dog. That's why you spilled your tea.
No problem at all.
Yeah. Meg is the co director of chapters for Gays Against Groomers. And consequently, that position puts her in touch with all the statistics and all the other things that's going on. Where right now, if you look around you, they're trying to mutilate an entire generation of children. And, they're trying to indoctrinate them in something without understanding what they're doing and not understanding the ramifications long term or anything of that nature. And so she is like me. I refer to a lot of the craziness out there with the pedophiles and the transgender organizations that are spreading hate so much. And, if you say anything against them, then you're going to be in trouble. But, it doesn't mean that everybody who lives in an alternate lifestyle, you know, um, Meg herself is gay, lesbian. I don't know which word you prefer, but gays and lesbians have been in our world for a long time, but that does not mean that they're in line with what the others are doing out there, the ones that are so hate filled. And so she herself is one that wants everybody to know the dangers. Now, she's probably going to be on with us for a couple, 3 weeks at least, anyway. But today, our topic is going to be what they're teaching our children in the schools. And everything from kindergarten through college, because you get to college and all of a sudden you're in this culture that even though they are adult as far as age is concerned, they're warping our kids' minds. They're making it to where they don't know what they are. And so anyway, go ahead and tell us what all Gays Against Groomers is doing, and the stuff about our schools, and just kind of fill everybody in.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, I would like to thank you so much for having me on. It is truly an honor to be on a platform as wide as yours and be able to speak about our organization. So Gays Against Groomers is a nonprofit organization that is out to save the children from indoctrination, sexualization, medicalization through the guise of our community. And that we, as the LGBT, are speaking back. We're speaking up because we do not agree with what's going on. So we do like to really push that we are here for the same reasons. When it comes to what's happening within the schools, it's all hidden. A lot of times parents don't even know what's happening. And the reason why it's come to the forefront of everything is because of COVID. And during all the shutdowns and the kids were doing online learning, parents were given the opportunity to see exactly what's going on in the classroom. And that's when a lot of this really started to come out and make headway. That's pretty much where we started catching wind of it. So it is happening from kindergarten starting, and it's like a slow progression. And they're really implanting in the heads of these children at an early age the different types of sexuality, whether you're lesbian, gay, and they're really pushing about non-binary and transgender. And the problem that I have with that is kids are impressionable, and they always say that they are not going above their comprehension level. Well, comprehension to kids is what you teach them. They don't know right and
Right.
wrong until their parents teach them right and wrong, so that way they can comprehend it. So the earlier that you get, the more likely they are to fall in line with that sort of lifestyle or that place, because not that it shouldn't be talked about, that some people might have two mommies or two daddies, It's more so, why do you need to go into such detail at such an early age? So I always stress age appropriate, not
Right.
comprehension appropriate. Between the books that they're giving these kids to read and the lessons that they're being taught, the way that teachers are going about it and hiding it from the parents, it's all something that we here in the organization strive to let parents know what's going on. That way they can really address it with their own kids.
Hmm. Yeah, because a few of the books I've seen, and I've noticed that a lot of places are trying to get out of, like our public libraries are trying to get away from the American Library Association because of the books that they're putting out there and the recommending and so forth. And then as far as our schools are concerned, a parent normally will never see a book come home. Everything is done online and stored in some place in Utah where big corporations have access to it, but the parents don't. You know, they're hiding everything they're teaching from the parents.
When it comes to that, it is correct. I know, especially here in California and a few other states that I've looked into, every parent has the right to go in and see the curriculum that their child will be learning. You can actually read the curriculum, you can see all the lessons plans because they have to be um, put out for the entire year. The thing is that they will not let you photocopy it or take pictures of it because it is a trademarked copywritten book or curriculum from a secondary company. Since it's not made by the school district, it's not made by the government, you technically have to fall in line with copyrights. And to me, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I get the laws of the laws when it comes to copyrights and we have to follow them. Every parent everywhere has the right to go in and read the curriculums that they're going to be teaching to your kids. Doesn't matter the grade. Every parent has the right to go into the libraries and see what books are there, what's inappropriate and what's not. The libraries, the public libraries, are trying to shy away from it so that way they can have more freedom of what is put in there, and it's not so much something that will be able to be voted on. And I
Hmm.
think that goes, to me, it's really, really a slippery type situation when it comes to the public libraries. But when it's within the school system, that's owned by the taxpayers. And so they have a lot more say in what happens.
Right. You know, I live in a small town. You know, there's only 1,800 people in my town, and so we're pretty staid as far as our actions are concerned. You know, and it's very, you know, stop trying to mutilate our children and things like that. But you know, we don't have a lot of interaction with transgenders in my town. You know, we have gays and lesbians, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with any of that. You know, some of them I consider very close friends, but I am totally against whenever our schools are keeping closets full of clothing so that when a child comes to school, they can switch over and wear the clothing of the opposite sex and so forth. And I'm not into, you know, forcing our girls to shower with somebody who identifies as a girl, but he's still got his male genitalia hanging out in the shower and so forth. You know, these are things that parents, especially, need to understand and, you know, get out there to the school board, get out there and see what they're
Mhm.
teaching.
Definitely, I agree on everything that you just said. The fact that these schools have the permission and have it actually written into their policies that they are not liable to tell the parents what is happening with their child during school hours, whether the child Jane comes to school and says that she's now transgender and wants to be called Tom, and everybody at the school has to confirm it. And then the school is still hiding it from the parents, to me, is morally wrong and unacceptable. And they
Mhm.
use it as the guise of they're saving the child because the home may be abusive. How do you know if you haven't had a conversation with the parents if it is?
Right. You
California is
know,
having a big problem right now where if you do not affirm your child, they're trying to pass a bill where your child at 12 years old can have medical autonomy and be removed from your home because they consider that abuse. So they're actually taking kids away from their parents if you don't affirm them. But a
a
child can just say, my
12-year-old
parents
has
didn't
no
affirm and never
idea.
say anything.
Yeah,
Exactly.
a 12-year-old has no concept of the world at large. And,
Yeah.
you cannot convince me that a 12-year-old has the um, mentality to understand or do the research
Mhm.
on transgenderism and what's going to happen to their bodies. And if they proceed with this, and I think you told me that California, after they take your kid, or if your kid runs away from home because you're against this, um, that, the state's going to pay for them to have the surgery and mutilate themselves.
Yeah, they have medical autonomy starting at the age of 12 years old. And of course, they can't have a job until they're 16. But once they leave their parents' home or they run away, they are now a ward of the state. So the state will provide all of that medical care as well. California last year became a sanctuary state for any minor, excuse me, who wants to transgender or transition. And they can just run here freely. Whereas before, there's parental laws that if you come here, we have to send you back to your parents in the state that you come from legally. Well, becoming a sanctuary state, now it is a refuge for all these kids who run away because their parents won't let them alter their body medically, will now come to California, become a ward of the state, and California will pay for it. California's tax dollars will not pay for it. First of all, if you can't drive a car, can't go gamble, buy a beer, buy a pack of cigarettes, you can't get a tattoo, how do you know what you're doing with your body? Because, all those other things are, they're not old enough to understand what's going to happen. But now they're able to permanently medicalize and castrate themselves, and they really are not told anything beyond it'll make you happy, it'll make you feel better. When it goes back to, I want to retouch on the locker room situation. That is something we've been highly talking about here in California with a lot of the parents. They're now forcing the teachers to be okay with it, where we've had a lot of male coaches uncomfortable with young girls changing in the men's locker room. The locker rooms typically have large glass windows looking into the locker room so that way they can kind of make sure no shenanigans are going on. And they are very uncomfortable because the girls are openly changing in front of them and these boys. Vice versa, a lot of the female coaches are uncomfortable and know that it's uncomfortable for the girls within the schools to change in
Right.
front of biological boys. Same with the restroom situation. And while I get, okay, we need to have more restrooms that are accommodating, more locker rooms that are accommodating, at the same time, there has been a lot of cases coming out where young boys are saying that they're transgender, going into the women's locker room and assaulting the girls that are at school.
Right.
So
I've
those things
seen
that they're
lots
saying
of
don't
reports.
happen are happening.
Yeah, they're raping a student that, and they're only got in there because of the fact that I said they identify as female. I'm not sure all of them do. I think a lot of them, it's like, okay, let's just go in here. We're 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. And if I say I'm a girl, I can go in here and nobody's going to stop me. And I don't think most parents really want that for their children, male or female.
No, all the parents that we speak to, they are really against it because they see what's happening nationwide. They see the news. They are now waking up and paying attention to what's happening within the schools. And what you said about going to the school board meetings, it really does work. It may take time, it may take a lot of effort, and it may take a lot of parents coming together. But we had a huge one here in Glendale that us here in LA County in the organization, we went and supported them multiple times. We went and spoke out with them multiple times, and they rallied together. I would like to consider them the blueprint of all parents within the country. If you want to get something done, look at the parents of Glendale. They were able to actually get the superintendent to retire 2 years early because of the pressures that they were putting on her. And
Awesome.
she didn't want to deal with it anymore. And so now you know, election time is rolling around for the school board. The parents can vote in who they want to and get the people on there who are going to vote in the superintendent that best aligns with their values, which should be everybody's values,
Right.
education. indoctrination. So going to school boards, it's definitely worth it. If anything, you're not just speaking to the board, you're speaking to everybody watching. You're speaking to those who may hear your voice and want to activate alongside you. I always look at it that way because sometimes talking to the school board is like talking to a brick wall. They're
Yep.
all,
Been
yeah.
Yeah, I ran for the school board once, and it's like, everybody just, they were all off on these strange tangents, in my opinion. And I'm going, okay, let's look at the kids. Let's look at what you're trying to
Mhm.
teach them. Let's bring it age appropriate and, stop all this stuff that President Biden wants us to push. And Kamala Harris and all of that uh, ilk. It's like they want to say our children do not belong to us, that our children belong to everybody, and our children belong to the government. And I have never. I'll be 65 in October. Okay, I've never seen our nation in such chaos right now, and this is one that is near and dear to my heart because I've taken in kids my entire life. I had over 90 kids living with me over the years. And I'll tell you, none of them ever wanted to be the opposite sex. I had a few tomboys. I love tomboys. Okay. I think a girl ought to be able to take care of herself. I think a girl can do about anything a guy can do. But if your daughter is a tomboy, that doesn't mean go and mutilate her body in order to make her a male because she'll never be fully male.
And that's the problem that we're seeing now is when these kids go to school at an early age, say the little boy doesn't like sports because he has older sisters and so he like feels more comfortable playing with the girls. Well, now he's pulled into a counselor's office and asked, do you feel more like a girl than a boy? And then they start that idea and that road. Same with little
Mhm.
girls. She likes sports. She doesn't want to play jump rope or, play with the other little girls because she has older brothers. Same concept, pulled into the counselor's office. Do you feel more like a boy or a girl? And they're implanting that seed at such an early age and then feeding them the information on how to transition or giving them information on it, making it to where it's more celebrated than anything. They're more celebrated than any other person or demographic in the school
Mhm.
system. It's making it look very appealing. And I get there, we should have pride in ourselves. And again, everybody should know that there's different types of people in the world, but at an age appropriate level. It doesn't need to be talked about in kindergarten, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. And at the same time, I always go back to parental consent. Parents are not able to opt their kids out of these lesson plans. It is regulated, it is mandated. I remember in fourth grade, fifth grade, all the way through, I think, my senior year in high school, I had to have a written permission slip to take sexual education courses within schools.
Right.
I don't know why this is any different, but for some reason it is becoming mandated and parents can't opt their kids out. They're not telling the parents when these curriculum lessons are going to be taught, which is a huge problem.
Mhm.
Religious or not, views or not, morals or not, whatever, is going on with the parents' kids, because they're not the teachers' kids, they're not the government's kids, they're not our kids. I always say they're the nation's kids because at this point it does take a whole nation. It takes an army to fight what's going on. And these parents are having all of their rights stripped away, all of them, when it comes to what they want their child to learn. And all of them say, I only want them to learn English, writing, math, science, history. And why
Which
are our
is
kids
crazy.
so, yeah. And since they really started pushing this agenda, we've noticed there's a huge decline in test scores. There's a huge decline. Kids before in the Glendale district, they were more towards the upper 80s of the education level that they were giving in all of California. And now they're in the 60s. They're scoring so much lower and they're so worried about, talking about transgenderism and the LGBTQIA plus agenda that we're just like, can you just go back to the stuff that's actually important? And
Yeah.
they're unwilling to. And a lot of
Yeah.
it is coming down federal regulated that they have to do if they want funding.
Yeah, and our federal government is imposing itself entirely too much into our personal lives and into the lives of our children. And I've even seen uh, I saw an article just the other day about a lady in California, and she was going to adopt a child, and all of a sudden, everything was perfect. She had a wonderful job, she had a beautiful home, and everything like that. But because she was a Christian, they said that she could not adopt a child because she would not agree to um, conversations on switching your gender and so forth. It's like, why is it all of a sudden that if you will not agree to this transitioning or have conversations with your child about transitioning, then that makes you a bad parent?
It's definitely becoming a question that is asked of every parent, even fostering. You have to go along with it if you want to adopt or foster a child in a lot of states, especially the blue states. I don't understand why that is such a pushed topic. They feel that all of these kids are going to be oppressed and abused because of that. When in reality, if they were to come to these adopted parents or any parent actually and just kind of speak freely with them, parents, they don't really care, especially if you're coming out as like gay or lesbian. They're just like, okay, how can I support you? When
Yeah.
it comes to medicalizing the kids, the only thing they ask, just wait, just grow up a little bit, figure your figure yourself out, give your time to grow, give your frontal cortex time to make that cognitive, like, information dissonance before you medically alter your body. And I don't understand why that is so hard for people to understand. What is the
Mhm.
rush? What is the rush?
Yeah.
This is why we're
And
having such a huge rate of detransitioners coming out, is because we're not having the long-term conversations with these kids.
I had a detransitioner on my show a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about it. And there was trauma in her life, and so she was nobody addressed that trauma before she decided that she was uncomfortable with her boobs, because her friend had been raped by her own brother, not the girl's brother who transitioned, but she was uncomfortable in her body, but
Mhm.
nobody addressed that trauma. And before she had the top surgery, and before she went in and had the top surgery, the only thing that she ran into is the doctor did not want to be classified as transphobic. So he's
Yeah.
like, okay, send you to a couple of counselors, send her in for two counseling sessions with two separate doctors. One she spoke with for 40 minutes and one she spoke with for 50 minutes. And then the next thing was they did a double mastectomy.
Oh my god.
And, she, and then after she decided she didn't want to do that, and she's got a boyfriend these days and so forth, um, there's no way for her to detransition because she's not recognized through the insurance companies and things like that, and she figured out on her own that, they never sent her to an endocrinologist or anything of that nature to find out if there was something medically going on with her before it all started. But after she decided to detransition, she took control of her own health and went and got all the testing done and got off all the hormones and things like that, and so she is much healthier now. But if they had just checked all the stuff, her endocrinologist or somebody like that had done complete workup, done complete blood work and examined that, then she probably would not have had the double mastectomy, because she still got
Yeah.
issues with the double mastectomy.
And there's no going back from that. There's just getting implants is not the same as having the breast tissue. And we're finding a lot more like statistics coming out that once you go on, even if you're an adult, hormones, it's completely killing your reproductive system. So if she started at 18, by the time she's 25 or 26 and realizes that she wants to have a kid, well, she no longer has breast tissue to produce to breastfeed. She no longer has full function of her body in order to do that. Um,
Yeah. But it's like nobody wants to even examine or discuss the long-term consequences of this transitioning. And I am absolutely sure that nobody is addressing that to these young children.
they're
If a
not
12-year-old there, they're not, nobody's going to tell them that, by the time you're 40, you're going to have osteoporosis just because of what they've done to your body.
exactly. In California, I know, and I think New York and a couple other extremely blue states, you can walk in at a young age, and I've heard the youngest being 11 or 12, to different clinics. And all you do is you read a pamphlet, you talk to somebody for 30 minutes, and you can walk out on puberty blockers or hormones. And they don't, they have different codes that they put on your chart so that way they won't talk to your parents about it. They will just sit there and do whatever the kid wants without sending them to therapy or having them checked out first. They won't run tests to make sure that their body is healthy enough to withhold doing that. It's very frustrating to hear that. We have seen many cases of that happening. The fact that they always, and when I say they, I mean all the people who are for this, they say that, surgeries aren't happening to kids, but every single day there's some new case coming out where, a doctor was caught because they did this to a minor and they did a double mastectomy, or they, did bottom surgery. There's been even Jazz Jennings had bottom surgery before she was 18 and had to have multiple revisions because it didn't come out right, because she wasn't given the chance to grow up, to have the right tissues, to have the right anything grow properly in order to hold on to surgery. I mean, even I had to go to 7 different doctors and do blood tests before I had my cancer removed. And now they're just doing these to the kids because the kids don't feel comfortable. Nobody feels comfortable during puberty. Not a single person. And I know
No.
me, I had a lot of trauma in my life and I wanted to opt out of my girlhood. And thank goodness that I grew up in the 90s and not today, because I probably would have been made to think that I was trans at a young age. Instead, I grew up to my 20s. I embraced my womanhood, and we've been here ever since. But I just look at these young tomboys and all these young effeminate boys, and I'm like, I can't believe that they're making them feel like they are born in the wrong body. And the amount of kids who are transitioning has skyrocketed. So we noticed that in the states where it's highly promoted, it has just, it's social contagion off the charts. And for some reason, it seems to be attacking the young girls mostly. There has, I think the newest study is a 4,500% increase in young girls over the last 4 years who are claiming to be transgender and moving on to medicalization before the age of 18.
Oh,
They noticed a
that's
huge spike during the UK part as well a few years ago.
Yeah, and I saw
I'm,
some statistics saying that those who have transitioned, you know, they've over the last couple of years, you always hear if you don't allow your child to transition, they're going to commit suicide. I don't think
that
that's
is,
true. Right now I'm seeing the statistics saying that 50% of those who have transitioned are suicidal. Over 50%, actually.
yeah, that's definitely turning out to be the case. All of the new statistics that are coming out, they're saying that the hormones at a young age and the puberty blockers are actually causing more mental illness and more mental instability than as if they were just to get therapy to begin with. So that whole rhetoric of that they've been pushing to the parents, would you rather have an alive son or a dead daughter, is completely false. The suicidal ideation, a lot of children seem to be having it, or they're more open and vocal about it because they don't feel accepted into society. They want to opt out of something and become a protected class. And so that's kind of where all of this is stemming from, I believe. And we're also seeing this trend statistically. Now that we have a lot more data, it's showing that when children are transitioned too early, they actually become more suicidal, because once they reach 18, 19, 20 years old, they realize, I can't undo what I've done to my body, and I am now a forever medical patient. I now have all these complications. I can't live a normal life. I've chopped off my healthy body parts, and I regret it, and I will never get that back. There are even some adults who they transitioned at like 19, 20, 21. I've heard up to 27 who they weren't educated on what it really means and what it's going to do to their body as well. They're just kind of rushed, fast tracked through. And now 7, 8, 10 years later, they're regretting so bad because their health is declining rapidly.
Yeah.
And this isn't all of the transgender people. I have very, very, very close and good friends of mine who are transsexual, and they understand the risks because they did their research. They have done the proper therapy. They've gone through the steps, and their doctors actually transitioned them in such a way that it was less damaging to their body, and they are happier than ever. And I am so happy for that. But they actually did the research and did it as an adult. There's a difference between that and fast tracking a minor who adults are supposed to be the trusted one. Teachers, school counselors, all these adults in their life, they're supposed to be the trusted one, and they're steering them into a lifelong medicalization, sterilization. Then they're forcing them for mutilation. When it comes to the surgery too early, they don't even have the opportunity to comprehend. That's why that's why we all in the organization have such a bone of contempt for the school system right now. That's why you will see us all across the nation continuously going to school boards everywhere. And we're going to city council meetings. We're going to state legislature, getting helping pass these laws to stop this from happening. There's a lot of pushback, and a lot of the laws are trying to be overturned that we've already accomplished. So this is a long uphill battle.
Yeah,
and it all starts with schools in check.
I know Kansas City, Missouri became a sanctuary city for transgenders and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're in the middle of the country. We don't get a whole lot of this. Kansas City and St. Louis, they get a little crazy. And the rest of the state is sitting back going, what happened? How did this come about? And, I know Camille from dtrans.org. She was talking about the fact that her physician and the counselors that she was sent to just didn't want to be labeled as transphobic. And I think the hate coming out of the particular mindset, with the drag queen shows and naked bike races down the street and things like that, it is warping our children, and we're not getting to the fact of the matter, and we're not able to even address the damage, because if you address the damage you're doing to a child, you are automatically attacked.
That is very, very true. And us in the organization can definitely, attest to that. If you go against the narrative, then you are attacked consistently. At this point, it's lost all meaning to be called a bigot or homophobic or straight in disguise. I'm like, would you like to see my marriage license? But we all have it coming left and right to us. The only problem and that I see happening with medical professionals is if they do help detransitioners, a lot of the insurance companies will not cover it. And depending on if you're in a private practice or if you're with large corporations like Kaiser Permanente or some of the UC schools, I know because I've heard doctors here in California say it, they risk losing their license if they do not perform or follow along the guidelines of they say they must be. So, and the fast tracking, there have been multiple. There are now tons of doctors speaking out about it, tons of doctors pushing back, which is exciting to see the medical profession just getting fed up. And they're like, no, we can't do this to these kids anymore. We cannot just turn a blind eye. And
when they did that oath, they said, first, do no harm. You're harming people.
And they know it. And It's great. We actually just had a new member join the California chapter, and his husband is a physician. And he said, anytime you guys need a doctor and of a personal opinion, just let me know. He's like, I have all of the inside, knowledge and everything that gets funneled down through the government that I would be more than willing to share. And it's amazing to finally see these physicians and these doctors step up and against it. It's been a long fight for them, but they've gotten to
Hmm.
the point where they're like, if they take my license, they'll figure it out because
I would rather lose my medical license and go, cook hamburgers at Burger King than destroy a child's life. That's my
that's
personal opinion.
that's about where they're at this point. They just cannot live with themselves knowing what's happening. Some
Hmm.
of some of the medical professionals, they do believe in what they're doing. They do believe it's the right thing. I don't understand how, but they do. And then these doctors, they now turn a blind eye again when the person comes to them and tries to detransition. Look, I did everything you said. I went on the blockers, I had the surgeries. I'm now on HRT. And for those who don't know what HRT is, it's cross-sex hormones, hormone replacement therapy. We're taking our HRT like we're supposed to, but I'm having these side effects. And I don't like how it's making my body feel, or they're having such extreme side effects that they need to detransition because they're going to lose their life if they don't, physically and
Right.
medically, not because they're suicidal, but because their body is shutting down and they're just getting tossed to the wind. During this last Pride Month, Gays Against Groomers actually ran a fund, a detransition fund, and I know we're talking about doing it again or possibly having it ongoing. It was definitely a success, where 50% of all of our proceeds for that month went into this fund, and we issued out some donations to some detransitioners and a couple of organizations that do work with detransitioners to give them, coverage for medical care or daily care, whatever they needed that money for to help them during this journey that they're on. We were able to help supply, some type of donation funds for them to go through it. A lot of them are now suing their medical professionals. There's a really famous detransitioner here in California, Chloe Cole. She's been so outspoken about it. She's, I think, just barely 19. Was started puberty blockers at 12, cross-sex hormones at 14 or 13, and then they gave her a double mastectomy at 15. Now having a lot of side effects and issues, and realized that I was just uncomfortable going through puberty, and that's what it was. Leading a whole movement of detransitioners fighting back, starting a whole lawsuits everywhere against Kaiser Permanente. So we're now seeing the tides change. And again, her parents were dumbfounded when they came to her with this because she had already started social transition in school and the school never told him. They never
Hmm.
said anything. And she learned about it because of social media. All of these kids are seeing it on social media, being reinforced it in schools, and nobody's talking about the dangers of it. So we
Yeah.
always,
Nobody.
I guess, are education forward. Education forward. We'll educate you. You have a question. If we don't know the answer, which is highly doubtful, we will find the answer for you.
Hmm.
Ugh, these poor
You know,
kids. Like, it's
yeah, it
heartbreaking
makes
every day.
it, yeah, it makes me cry thinking about it, because I know my grandchildren have some friends that say, a little boy who says he's a girl and the girl says she's a they and them. And it's like, okay, this one's 15 and that one's 10. And you guys don't really know. And nobody tells them the long term effects, even a physician. Why can't you just go get a endocrinologist to check you over and, get all your blood work done and do all this other stuff to see what is actually going on with your body before these parents say, "Oh no, it's fine because the doctor said, you're going to commit suicide if I don't let you do this."
And that's what I like to stress to parents is that is not the case. If your child comes to you and they're having these feelings, go get them proper therapy. But you need to background check these therapists because they're also doing the same thing. They're reinforcing within one appointment exactly what the narrative is. So you have
Right.
to really, really look and do your homework on finding a real physician or therapist who isn't in the cult, as we like to say. They're not in that narrative. They're not in that space where they're just going to affirm, affirm, affirm. They're actually going to get to the bottom of what's going on and see what's happening. Most of the time, it's because they saw it online, their friends are doing it, they heard it at school, it's cool, it's the new trendy thing. You know, in the 90s, we had like the goth kids, or then we had the punk rockers, and, all those little social contagions that happened. I know that teen pregnancy was a big thing in the late 90s, early 2000s, and all of a sudden you saw a bunch of teenagers getting pregnant because they got special, treatment or accolades. They had their own show on MTV, and now we're seeing this. So it's the same trend, just a different medical topic.
Yeah. Well, it's a scary medical topic. We've taken up our time though, and so I would like for you to come back with me and, kind of explain, the long-term medical issues and so forth that transitioners are finding, and what it actually does to your child's body should you decide to let them transition. I don't care if somebody wants to transition, but let's be smart about it. Okay, let's get up in 20s, 25, something like that, when you actually know what's going on in the world and can understand the long-term effects. And so that's one of the reasons I really like Gays Against Groomers. You guys are very outspoken, and I follow you on Twitter and your Facebook page and everything, and Instagram. Um,
Mhm.
and so everyone knows, we know that they're trying to shut down a lot of Christian conversations and so forth, but they're trying to shut down Gays Against Rumors too. You've got a couple of pages everywhere just for backup.
Yeah, definitely. So we've been banned from multiple platforms, multiple different companies have banned us because we don't speak the narrative that they want us to speak. So when it comes to transitioning a child early medically, the first thing that they're going to want to push is puberty blockers, and they say that you can just pause time. Well, you can't pause time on stopping somebody's puberty, because during puberty what happens is your bones fully form. They're not as soft as they were, so the density in your bones is forming, your frontal cortex is forming, your brain is still forming, your lungs, your heart, all of your organs are still, you know coming to maturity, which is the natural progression of your body. And if you stop that, you're going to have issues with all of those parts of your body. The main drug that they use is Lupron, and Lupron has actually been known to be used to chemically castrate sex offenders in
Mm,
prisons. It's also, people will argue, a lot of people and men are use it because they're having like some type of cancer or something later in life, but they are told of the medical ramification that you will be lose a lot of your sexual reproductive function, but they're not saying that to these kids. So what we're seeing is when they start puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones too early, they're having osteoporosis by the age of like 25. They're having heart issues, heart murmurs. They're having shrinkage of the brain or swelling of the brain. They're having lung, kidney failures. The amount of side effects that they're having, we will be here all day with me
mm.
explaining them,
Okay,
because
well, you can come back
it's
next
messing
week.
with my body. Yeah.
It's something.
Our
It's
next
one of
episode, we
those
can
things
talk
we
about
can talk on.
legalization in detail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we have to let her go this morning, but I thank you so much for coming on. And, you can catch this show on Facebook and on YouTube. You can catch it on Daily Motion. And every one of our shows is also played on Radio Free America. If you get the Get Me Radio app, you can make Radio Free America your favorite on there. And it plays 3 times a week this next week on Radio Free America. So if you didn't catch it today, if you saw something and your friends didn't catch it, please go check out the other platforms that it airs on, because we need to get this information out for everybody. And we do broadcast worldwide. And so, even if you're in, you know, the UK or any place like that, you can hear us. And maybe you can help stop the mutilization of our children.
That is what all of us can hope. And if anybody wants to find out more information about what Gays Against Groomers is or what we do, you can definitely head to our website at gaysagainstgroomers.com. And we have all of our information on there for parents who are having an issue with their child. We have a ton of resources on there. I know any of us are more than willing and happy to speak to parents. There are chapters all over the nation, so you can find your local chapter leader and email them, and we can definitely help with you. And if you would love to support, you can definitely help us fight this with a donation, and we would highly appreciate that as well.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us today, and we'll talk with you again next week, I guess. Have
Definitely.
a good evening.
Thank you for having me. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.